Picture this, a fierce group of seafaring warriors, known for their brutal raids and fearless fighting skills. These were the Vikings, also known as Norsemen, who ruled the seas from around AD 800 to the 11th century. But what happens when these powerful warriors stay in one place for too long? From raiders to rulers, the Viking story is one of transformation. In this video, we'll delve into the intriguing history of the Vikings and how their actions shaped the world we know today. So buckle up and let's dive into the world of the Vikings who stayed too long, unraveling the Viking identity. Contrary to some commonly held beliefs about the Vikings, they were not a homogeneous group tied by shared ancestry or patriotic bonds. Defining the Vikings solely by a distinct sense of Vikingness is a misconception. The majority of the Vikings, whose exploits are well documented, hailed from what is now Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. However, historical records also mention Vikings from Finland, Estonia, and the Sami regions. What unified them and set them apart from the European societies they encountered was their foreign origin, their perceived lack of civilization by local standards, and perhaps most notably, their non-Christian beliefs.
This is a place of God! If you do not resist, we will not hurt you.
The motivations behind the Vikings' ventures beyond their homelands remain uncertain. While some theories propose overpopulation as a factor, the earliest Vikings were primarily driven by a quest for wealth rather than territorial expansion. In the 8th century AD, Europe experienced economic growth, leading to the emergence of thriving trade centers like Dorestad and Quentivik on the continent, and Hamwick, now Southampton, London, Ipswich, and York in England. Scandinavian furs, highly coveted in these new markets, played a pivotal role. Through their interactions with Europeans, Scandinavians not only acquired knowledge of advanced sailing techniques, but also gained insights into the growing wealth and internal conflicts among European kingdoms. Building upon the exploits of their predecessors, pirates who targeted merchant ships in the Baltic Sea, the Vikings would leverage this knowledge to extend their wealth-seeking activities into the North Sea and beyond. Early Viking raids. In the year AD 793, the Viking Age was inaugurated with a raid on the Lindisfarne Monastery, situated off the coast of Northumberland in northeastern England. Although the attackers, likely Norwegians who traversed the North Sea, did not completely annihilate the monastery, the assault reverberated through the European religious landscape. What set these new invaders apart was their lack of reverence for religious institutions.
If this is their god, and he's dead, he's nailed to the cross.
He cannot protect anyone. He's not alive like Odin, Thor, or Frey.
What use is he then?
Particularly monasteries, often left unguarded and exposed near the shoreline. 2 years later, Viking raids targeted the defenseless island monasteries of Skye and Iona in the Hebrides, as well as Rathlin off the northeast coast of Ireland. The initial recorded raid on continental Europe occurred in 799 at the island monastery of St. Philibert's on Noirmoutier, near the estuary of the Loire River. In the subsequent decades, Vikings initially limited themselves to hit-and-run attacks on coastal locales in the British Isles, with a particular focus on Ireland, and in Europe, where the trading center of Dorestad, located 80 kilometers from the North Sea, became a frequent target after 830. Exploiting internal conflicts within Europe, the Vikings expanded their activities further inland. Following the death of Louis the Pious, the Emperor of Francia, modern-day France and Germany, in 840, his son Lothar actively sought the support of a Viking fleet in a power struggle against his brothers. This strategic move opened the door for other Vikings to recognize the lucrative opportunity, as Frankish rulers were willing to pay substantial sums to dissuade them from attacking their subjects. Consequently, Francia became an irresistible target for continued Viking activity, conquests in the British Isles. By the mid-9th century, the British Isles had become prime targets for Viking conquest and settlement. Ireland, Scotland, and England all felt the force of the Vikings' power. The Northern Isles of Scotland, including the Shetland and Orkney Islands, fell under Viking control, along with the Hebrides and large parts of mainland Scotland. The Vikings also established Ireland's first trading towns, such as Dublin, Waterford, Wexford, Wicklow, and Limerick. Using these bases to launch further attacks on Ireland, and across the Irish Sea to England. In response to increased defense measures in West Francia, the Viking forces turned their attention more towards England. Beginning in 851, a wave of Viking attacks swept across the country. However, only one kingdom, Wessex, managed to resist their advances.
Wessex remains powerful. Remains the last great kingdom of England.
The Vikings conquered East Anglia and Northumberland and weakened the kingdom of Mercia. Yet, King Alfred the Great of Wessex proved to be a formidable opponent.
I have to reject your offer of peace. You don't really want peace.
Decisively defeating a Danish army in 871. This victory allowed Wessex to hold off further Viking incursions and establish its dominance. As the Danes settled in the north, an area known as the Danelaw, they transitioned from raiders to farmers and traders. The city of York emerged as a thriving hub of commerce under Viking influence. In the first half of the 10th century, English armies, led by descendants of King Alfred, began reclaiming Scandinavian-held territories. This culminated in the expulsion and death of the last Scandinavian king, Eric Bloodaxe, around 952, finally uniting the English into one kingdom. The conquests in the British Isles marked a significant turning point in Viking history, as they transformed from raiders to settlers and began to shape the local cultures and societies. Viking Expansion, from Europe to distant shores. Simultaneously, Viking forces maintained their presence on the European continent throughout the 9th century. Their activities included the ruthless sack of Nantes on the French coast in 842, and assaults on towns as far inland as Paris, Limoges, Orleans, Tours, and Nimes. The year 844 witnessed Vikings storming Seville, then under Arab control, while in 859 they pillaged Pisa. However, their return northward from Pisa was met with resistance from an Arab fleet. In 911, a significant turn of events occurred when the West Frankish king entered into a treaty with a Viking chief named Rollo.
2 forts either side of the river to prevent the Vikings sailing right up to the city.
In exchange for Rollo's commitment to preventing other raiders from traversing the Seine, the king granted him Rouen and the surrounding territory. This region in northern France is now recognized as Normandy, meaning the land of the Northmen. During the 9th century, Scandinavians, predominantly Norwegians, initiated the colonization of Iceland, an uninhabited island in the North Atlantic. By the late 10th century, adventurous Vikings, including the renowned Eric the Red, ventured even farther westward to Greenland. According to later Icelandic histories, Viking settlers in Greenland, possibly led by the heroic Leif Erikson, son of Eric the Red, may have become the first Europeans to discover and explore North America. Naming their landing site Vinland, Wineland, they established a temporary settlement at L'Anse aux Meadows in present-day Newfoundland. However, conclusive evidence of a sustained Viking presence in the New World is limited, and no permanent settlements were established. Dawn of Danish Dominance. The mid-10th century rule of Harald Bluetooth, marking the onset of a renewed Viking age, saw Denmark unified, strengthened, and Christianized. Orchestrated by royal leaders, large-scale raids unfolded along European coasts, particularly in England, where the line of kings descending from Alfred the Great faced challenges. Harald's defiant son, Sven Forkbeard, initiated Viking raids in 991, eventually conquering England in 1013, forcing King Ethelred into exile. Sven's passing left his son Knut to govern a Scandinavian empire encompassing England, Denmark, and Norway along the North Sea. Post-Knut era witnessed succession complexities, leading to Edward the Confessor's return from exile in 1042, reclaiming the English throne from Danish rule. Harold Godwin Essen, Edward's powerful noble son, asserted his claim upon Edward's death in 1066, though victorious against the last great Viking king, Harold Hardrada, at Stamford Bridge near York. Harold succumbed to William, Duke of Normandy, weeks later.
The English have crowned a new king. Harold Godwinson.
Crowned on Christmas Day in 1066, William successfully withstood subsequent Danish challenges, solidifying his reign as the King of England. Legacy of the Vikings. The legacy of the Vikings encompasses a profound impact on history, culture, and society. As skilled seafarers and explorers, the Vikings expanded trade routes, established influential kingdoms and significantly shaped the political and cultural landscape of medieval Europe. Their contributions to trade, technology, and military strategies left an enduring mark, evident in the archaeological record and the linguistic heritage of modern Scandinavia. The Norse mythology and sagas, along with iconic symbols, continue to resonate in cultural expressions, while the rich literary tradition of the Icelandic sagas immortalizes the Vikings' heroic past. The legacy is not confined to the past. It lives on in contemporary landscapes through place names and cultural influences, illustrating the lasting and multifaceted impact of the Vikings on the world. End of the Viking Age. The conclusion of the Viking Age unfolded in 1066, notably in England, signaling a transformative era. At this juncture, all Scandinavian realms had embraced Christianity.
You entered here as a pagan, and you will leave here as a Christian Saxon prince. As your godfather, I've chosen a new name for you. From now on, you'll be known as Athelstan,
leading to the assimilation of residual Viking cultural traits into the fabric of Christian Europe. Presently, remnants of the Viking legacy endure primarily in the Scandinavian roots, embedded in vocabulary and place names across their former settlements, spanning northern England, Scotland, and Russia. In Iceland, a profound testament to Viking heritage endures in the form of the Icelandic sagas, a rich literary tradition immortalizing the triumphs of their illustrious past. And there you have it, the incredible saga of the Vikings. How did their presence shape the course of European history? And what lessons can we draw from their remarkable journey? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to hit that like button if you've enjoyed this historical expedition. Until next time, I'm out.